Hello, my name's Laura Finazzo, and I'm a program coordinator with the LEAP program here at CCBC. And this is our new mentor orientation webinar for people who are interested in becoming a mentor with our program. Here's a brief overview of what we'll discuss today. First, I'll just give you some background about the LEAP program, and then a little bit more specifically about our mentoring program within LEAP. We'll go over the description and expectations of the mentoring position. And then there's sort of two components of participation. One is monthly group mentoring activities, and then the other is one-on-one individual mentoring. And I'll provide some detail on each of those. And then we'll do a brief discussion and overview of some different training and resources. And you'll be provided with a lot more of those after completion of this webinar. And then I'll do a brief discussion as well of some ethical, safety, and risk management issues, and then talk through what the next steps are going to be in the process. So the LEAP program, we have a vision to provide Baltimore County out-of-school youth with the opportunity to receive holistic training and support services to increase knowledge, workforce preparation, academic skills, competencies, and credentials, leading youth into entry-level employment and long-term success in a career pathway. So that's our mission statement and our vision statement. But what you really need to know is that LEAP is a federally funded program. So the money comes from the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, known as WIOA. It's a federal grant which was administered to the states and then to the local areas within the states. Baltimore County chose CCBC to be the vendor for this, the youth portion of the WIOA grant. So we provide technical training in nursing assistant, dental assistant, phlebotomy, farm tech, apartment maintenance, medical front office, and childcare training areas. And in addition to those trainings, we provide case management, counseling, and coaching in that every student on the LEAP program's active caseload is assigned to a case manager. We also have job developers on staff, and all of our students are assigned to job developers. So between the case manager and the job developer, all students have a team of at least 2 LEAP staff that they work with pretty directly and in one-on-one individual capacity to help support them in their personal, professional, and academic goals. We provide all of our students with support classes. They're actually required to take these before they're allowed to go into their technical coursework. So we kind of draw students in by advertising that we have free technical training, but we have these other wraparound services and these other support classes that we provide upfront, sort of as a prerequisite, so that we make sure they have all the skills, tools, and knowledge that they need to succeed in their technical classes. And those classes that we refer to as support classes include career readiness, academic skills, computer skills, financial literacy, and then we also have a life management skills course and a career exploration course as well. And then after the students go through their support classes, then move into their technical classes and successfully complete both those sets of classes, they sometimes have an opportunity to take part in what we call a WALO, a work experience learning opportunity, which is pretty much a paid temporary work experience. It's sort of like an internship or a clinical, but we actually have funding through the county to pay the students while they're going through these part-time temporary internships. And then additional services we provide, we can refer to resources. So I know I have some students that need assistance with mental health, or maybe they need to provide to find daycare vouchers. You know, we can provide referral and help students learn about some of the programs that are out there to help with those types of things. And then we also can provide financial and transportation assistance. So the LEAP program covers the cost of all of the courses that I described above, but we also can assist students with the cost of textbooks, certification exams, licensure, if background checks and drug screenings are necessary. And then we can provide bus tokens for them to get to and from campus, interviews, jobs, that sort of thing. So our population, not everyone is eligible for the LEAP program. So it's designed to target out-of-school youth. And we describe, or I guess the legislation describes out-of-school youth as students who are not currently in education, a post-secondary school, but have graduated high school, or students who withdrew from high school and do not have their high school diploma, GED, and are seeking it. But in addition to that very, very broad look at what the out-of-school youth population is, they also need to be 18 to 24 months old. And then in addition to those types of things which come from that umbrella term of an out-of-school youth, We also have additional requirements, which are listed here. So the students have to be basic skills deficient, which means that they must test below a 9th grade level in either reading or math. And typically we see that most students do pretty well on our reading exam, but the math is where they fall below that 9th grade level. The students also must meet low income requirements based on their last 6 months of income. And then a lot of times our students have additional barriers, which we have to capture when we are enrolling them. So some of these barriers that we look at are if the student's a parent or if they're pregnant and they're expecting to soon become a parent, if they have a limited work history or even no work history at all, if they come from the foster care system, if they've been diagnosed with a learning, physical, or a mental health disability, if they're receiving financial benefits like SNAP, also known as food stamps, or TCA, temporary cash assistance, or maybe if they're involved with the adult or the juvenile justice system. So we are looking at young adults, again, it's 18 to 24-year-old that are not currently engaged in school, but we also are looking at some other things that demonstrates that they do need some assistance. They are facing some different types of barriers to meeting their career and education goals. So what is mentoring? So a very broad definition of mentoring is a relationship that takes place between a young person, referred to as a mentee, and an older or a more experienced person, known as a mentor. And that mentor is acting in a non-professional helping capacity to support and help benefit some area of the mentee's development. So with that definition in mind, I'll give you a little bit more of an understanding about LEAP's mentoring program. So as I referenced, WEO is legislation that provides us with the funding for the LEAP program. And there's a variety of different services that we need to be providing to all of the students who come in the door. Doesn't mean the students have to take advantage of each of them, but we must be able to offer all of these services. And one of those is adult mentoring. So the way that the legislation defines adult mentoring is that it must be a relationship that occurs between, an adult that is, I guess, older than the youth, and then a youth that's 18 to 24. It must last for at least 12 months. And then the majority of our activities that we have between the mentor and the mentee should occur in person and face-to-face. This legislation was written pre-COVID, so obviously some of our guidelines around this and our recommendations around the face-to-face stuff are a little bit looser now, just because we can't do a lot of things face-to-face these days with the nature of the pandemic. But nonetheless, the guideline is that most of the activities should occur in person and face-to-face. So with those very, very general kind of frameworks, we designed an in-house mentoring program just for the LEAP program. And what we do is pair student mentees with volunteer mentors to provide both personal and professional guidance and to help develop the character of our LEAP students. And the ways that we do this, we provide structured monthly group mentoring meetings, which will help build relationships between and amongst the student mentees and the volunteer mentors. But the real crux of the mentoring relationship occurs in the kind of one-on-one individual relationship that the students and their volunteer mentors develop on their own. But we do come together for these monthly mentoring meetings as well, so everyone can kind of get to know one another and continue to build that rapport. So I won't read through all of this word for word, but essentially our vision is that our program's mentors will help our students navigate the challenges that are typical to young adults, and will in turn also help develop the competence and character of our mentees, and then of course also help enhance their performance in our program. And our mission statement sort of explains how we're going to do that. So as I just sort of said, we'll pair the students with mentors to provide ongoing coaching and support. And then the second component is that we'll have these monthly group mentoring activities. And the mission overall is that doing these things will help to develop the mentees' character and competence and support their success. So what is the, expectation? What are the ideas of, what we want to mentor somebody in this position to do? So if you saw one of our, our flyers or our position description, then this language probably looks pretty familiar to you. So give me one second. All right. So we want people who are interested in forming long-term, meaningful, and supportive relationships with our youth. And some of the expectations of what you would assist youth with would be just navigating challenges of young adult life and reaching personal, academic, and professional goals. We expect that the mentors might share information about their own career path, provide some guidance, some motivation, some emotional support, role modeling, could help with career exploration, goal setting, developing contacts, identifying resources for the mentee. Overall, our mentors should be comfortable providing a safe environment to share and discuss relevant, valuable career experiences. And the mentors should display enthusiasm and a willingness to assist others with achieving their career goals, but at the same time, also respecting that mentees' individuality, their interests, concerns, and needs specific to them. So what I envision is that the relationship between each mentor-mentee pair will look different, but it will all be based on those two unique personalities. And most of all, it will be based on what that student wants. So I know I have some students that really are interested in starting their own business one day and have a lot of entrepreneurial type goals. And so I think it's really interesting to try to pair them with people that might have those same types of experiences to mentor in that way. Other times we have students that are coming in, they're starting as maybe a CNA nursing assistant or a dental assistant, but they know eventually they want to become, a registered nurse, or they want to become a dental hygienist or even a dentist. Providing them with the opportunity to talk to somebody in a very comfortable environment who is in that position that they eventually see themselves taking on, it can be a really, really powerful experience in helping them to understand what that might look like for them and the steps they could take to get there. I know I also have some students that, are single parents, and they definitely have a lot of struggles as it relates to work-life balance and school life balance, and then school work-life balance. So, I think there are some students that would definitely seek just some more information about how, successful adults in their chosen career path balance having a family and having hobbies and personal interests and having a career, and maybe even going back to school and juggling all those types of things. And of course, there are some students we have that are very goal oriented, but then there are others that might need more support and help with setting goals and having, an adult that is there to kind of help them not just maybe set goals that they might set with their LEAP case manager that are related to school, but maybe just goals about things that they want to work on in their lives, getting better at being on time, broadening their network of people that they know who are in the same field that they're interested in, or doing a job shadow so that they can kind of get a better sense of what this job they're looking or this career field that they're looking into, what a day in a life of somebody in that field is really like. So there might be very specific things that they want to set goals to do, or just different types of activities they might want to do with somebody in the position that they hope to be in. So those are just some of the things that we sort of expect the mentors to be comfortable sharing and discussing and assisting our student mentees with. So in terms of the actual expectations and the time commitment, the legislation says that mentoring service needs to last for a year. Now, obviously, if a student withdraws from the program or something, that's fine. But the intention is 1 year. So we expect that our mentors will serve for at least 1 year. They will be assigned to at least one student mentee. If any of our mentors are interested in mentoring more than one student, that's perfectly fine, and we would be more than happy to support that. But the expectation is that there will be a one-on-one relationship with at least one student. And beyond that, in terms of your actual commitment and the time that we would expect, we host monthly group mentoring activities. I'm trying to plan as many of them on the first Tuesday of the month as possible, rotating what location they're at and whether they're a daytime or an evening event. But we're also trying to take advantage of different college activities, lectures, arts and entertainment, volunteer opportunities. So there are times where, due to the event that we're going to be participating in, or maybe even just because the college is closed for a break or something like that, we may not meet on the first Tuesday of the month. So I try to have the schedule for at least the next 4 months planned out and make sure that people understand what that looks like. So that means obviously there are 12 activities a year that we conduct as a group. But because we understand that our mentors are working and have a lot of other responsibilities, we only expect that we would have you attend 4 to 6 monthly group activities. Now, if you want to do more than that, that would be wonderful. But we also need to be reasonable about not taking up too much of your time. So That is the expectation. 4 to 6 of those monthly group mentoring activities you would attend with your mentee. We also expect you to hold at least one individual mentoring session with your mentee each month. So when I say an individual mentoring session, I mean you guys are sitting down for a decent length conversation, whether it's in person, via phone, over FaceTime, or some other video chatting platform. But really having a discussion, whether it's just a kind of a check-in, how are you doing, and seeing how things are going, or talking very specifically through some goals. But having a time where, you've blocked out the time, your mentees blocked out the time, and you know that this is just about the two of you guys having a conversation. It's really important to help build that relationship, to have those kind of in-depth conversations and that undivided attention and that devoted time to do that. And then, of course, we also just want you to continue to check in. Just having a conversation with somebody once a month isn't the best way to build a relationship. It's also just like the ongoing and kind of continuous little check-ins here and there that can also kind of build that rapport. So we expect you to regularly just check in with your mentee via phone, even if it's just a quick chat to say, hey, I know that you were a little worried about a test you had coming up. How did that go? Let me know. A text, an email, or even if it is an in-person meeting and it's more than once a month, that's wonderful. But we would like to hear that you're at least bi-weekly checking in. Again, even if it's as simple as a text, been thinking about you, good luck on that test tomorrow, or, I hope your interview goes great. Let me know how it goes once you get out of there. That kind of thing can really be useful in building that trust and helping the mentees to make sure that they feel that they're being heard and respected and cared for by the mentor. And then the only other expectation is just that we would have all of our mentors provide a little bit of feedback to us on how things are going. So I've created an electronic form. It's only a couple of questions, and I'll send a reminder at the end of every month to, have all of our mentors complete it and send it back to me. And it pretty much is just to say, did you actually have an individual meeting with your mentee this month? Do you have any concerns that you don't know what to do, or you're not sure how to handle, or, and then or if there's an issue where your student fell out of touch or something and you aren't able to get in touch, you have the opportunity to say that. So try to make it as brief as possible, but just so that we can, on my end, make sure the students are still engaging with the mentors and that relationship's still going on without having to get into the relationship too much ourselves. All right, so as I referenced multiple times now, there's two components. So one of them, when it comes to our in-person requirements for the program, is our monthly group mentoring activities. So we are still, as I said, we try to plan the events out 4 to 6 months, but we're still always kind of trying to get new ideas and put new things on our calendar. So some of the different types of activities that we've already discussed or even planned are volunteer projects, doing different types of, like tree plantings or giving out meals at a homeless shelter, that sort of thing. Civic engagement events. So I think it would be really interesting to teach some of these students about different things related to like lobbying and voter registration drives and different ways to get involved in their local community and things that could really impact them, and just even educating them about those things and what those things look like, so that projects and issues that are of concern and really central to them, they kind of understand how they have a voice to speak to them and to maybe impact them, and just to know who their local legislatures are. We also would love to include having guest speakers on different types of topics. The first event that we did, which we didn't have any mentors there yet, but just to kind of bring some of the students in and start getting them engaged, we had our students participate in the CCBC President's Distinguished African American Lecture Series. So every February for Black History Month, she has a really engaging and really wonderful speaker come to speak on whatever issue was really pertinent or relevant to them. So this time we had Brandon Fleming, who is the head of the Harvard debate team, and he's a really, really engaging speaker who talked about some of his personal experiences and struggles he had in the education system, and just with not really being connected and how that kind of negatively impacted his success in school, and kind of comes around to talk about how the compassion of just one really, really great teacher helped him kind of connect and open up this whole other world of academia. And eventually, that led him on this path to now be a Harvard professor. So I know this is a little tidbit, but having guest speakers, can be really, really powerful, especially when they're really good ones like that. So we hope to do more of that. We also want to do team building activities, things that are just fun, and just kind of help to build rapport. And, some of the students, when we ask them, why are you interested in mentoring? Some of them say, I just want to meet other people. We find that a lot of our students are a little bit more lonely and isolated at this point in their lives when they've graduated from high school, but they're not really in a school or a work environment that's very stable or long term. They do sometimes have difficulty building relationships. So we think that team building sort of stuff could be a useful way to kind of connect our students and start building some of those connections we really want them to be able to have in their lives. And then, of course, we just want to do some things that are fun, different types of excursions, going to museums or going to different types of shows, or, doing some outdoors activities. So we have a lot of different things that we are interested in doing. All of our students have to complete a screening before we match them with a mentor. And one of the things that we ask them is to grade different types of activities that we would do as a group on how much they would like or dislike doing them. So we're trying to do as much as we can to design activities based on what our students are actually interested in doing. But I'm always also very much open to suggestions from the mentors themselves. But we want to do things that have a little bit of benefit. Maybe we're giving back, maybe we're educating students, maybe we're inspiring them, or maybe we're just doing something fun. But ultimately, we want to be providing students with a wide variety of different types of experiences that will give them things to talk about with their mentor. And whether it's through opening their eyes to something they never thought about before, or, taking part in an experience that takes them a little out of their comfort zone. So that's the first element. And then the second is the one-on-one mentoring. And I think I've referenced a lot of this, but the individual meetings between their mentor and mentee, they're kind of going to be very, the structure of them is very, very unstructured, to be honest. And I really hope that the mentor can help to build that structure based on what their mentee wants. So it could be personal or professional development. It could be setting their career path and learning more about it. What are some different types of things that I could do to enhance my learning or to make me a really, really great applicant when I go to apply for my first job as a pharmacy tech? And then goal setting. These are sort of the things that we will kind of suggest as the basis for what you could talk about during these meetings. But we want you to kind of take ownership of this, and based on the needs of your mentee and the desires of your mentee, shape it from there. But as I referenced before, the expectation is that there will be at least one individual meeting per month. And between those meetings, we'll also expect that you'll just keep regularly in touch, through other means that might not be as time consuming, but still just let your mentor know that you're there for them if they need you. All right, so that's sort of our first component of this orientation, I guess, is about the program, what you need to know, what the description of the role is, as well as the structure of the program. Now we're going to move more into the training part. So we're going to talk a little bit more about things related to mentoring approaches and best practices in the next few slides. And as I referenced before, you will receive a zip file with additional resources on mentoring best practices after completion of this training. There's definitely a lot of really useful resources out there for people who are interested in becoming mentors. But one of the things that's unique about our program is that we work with 18 to 24-year-old youth. And a lot of what you'll find is, working for people for children who are minors. So, just keep all of that. If you're doing some research on your own, I just want to caution everyone to kind of take some of what you're seeing with a grain of salt, because there are certain things that are very different when you're working with youth who are, independent, but they're still young adults versus youth that are minors and we have to answer to their parents. But nonetheless, I do have some resources that I've sort of sorted through to give you guys what I think is the best and going to be the most useful. And I'm, functioning as the coordinator for this mentoring program. So I'm here as a resource. I'm going to help if you have challenges, if you aren't sure what to do, if you're just reaching a roadblock and can't feel like you can't get through, if you need help with training and more resources, or if a student tells you that they're having a struggle with something and you don't know how to navigate it, I am here to help with that. So through my experience as a case manager for many, many years, and I have training as a counselor, so I feel like I kind of have two different lenses that I can hopefully help, um, kind of overcome some of those things and provide some suggestions. So please, please, please ask me questions. But additionally, all of our youth do have a case manager and a job developer. So these people also have very close and supportive relationships with the students you're going to be working with. And we encourage you to kind of collaborate and communicate with them. I know a lot of our mentors were recruited by one of our job developers. So I know that some of those relationships are already in place, but overall, if we're all working together, that's really going to be the most beneficial thing for the student. So if you're feeling ever a little out of your realm, or you're not quite sure about something, you can always ask any of us. I know it can be confusing when you're on the outside and we have this program structure and you're like, okay, what's this person's role versus this person's? But to your student, the case manager is the person that does all their intake, that helps them set their goals, that helps them get into their classes, that helps them navigate our online learning system, Brightspace, that helps them, select their classes and kind of helps guide them through everything, coordinates giving them bus tokens if they need them, or providing them with resources. Whereas the job developer oftentimes teaches some of those classes that are career related, and then of course helps them with their resumes and their cover letters and applying for jobs and preparing for interviews. I think if you don't know who to reach out to, you can reach out to me or any of us, and we'll make sure that if you need help with the student that you're working with, we will work amongst our team to make sure you're connected to the correct person. All right, so first thing I want you to do is just kind of think, obviously this is a webinar and we don't have a live audience to have a discussion, but I kind of want you to think about how you define what the role of a mentor is. When I think about a mentor, I think about someone who is, fostering my growth and who's invested in me and who's both like a role model, someone I aspire to be like, but also gives me room to grow and, puts me in a position to kind of learn from my experiences and get to where I want to go, but utilizing as much as I can the knowledge and experiences they've been through. So there's tons of roles, there's tons of words that kind of come to mind when you think about mentoring. So that's kind of my description and what I thought before I started really getting into mentoring, and just want everyone to kind of think for themselves, how do you define a mentor? And one way that I think can be really useful when we're defining what the role of a mentor is, especially because it can be very different for different people, is who are people that were mentors to you in your life? Who is someone that you really think back and say that person, even if we didn't define it and say they were a mentor, even if I wasn't part of a mentoring program, they mentored me. And why was that person important? What were the things that they did that made them such a crucial figure in your life? How did they demonstrate that they valued you and that they cared about you and that they were invested in your success? What were the qualities, the personality traits, the skills, the approaches that made them successful? So when you're, ever feeling a little bit out of, if you're just feeling a little bit like you don't really know, what you should be doing, I guess, to support your student, I think it's always useful to come back to this and think, well, who were the people that were mentors in my life? And what were the things that they did that helped me, that made me feel like I was important to them, that made me feel like I was learning from them and that they cared about me? And see if you can try just to bring that type of mindset to the problem or the struggle you're having with your student. I think the importance of being compassionate and empathic and just showing someone that you care cannot be overstated. So when I think about people that were mentors to me, they were people that, I knew I could talk to if I needed, and I could get good advice, and that they would take the time to guide me through my problems and talk me through them and help me come to what I needed to come to, by teaching and by just showing that they valued me and my success. So just don't underestimate, the importance of just showing that you care, but think about what those people who are mentors to you were like and see if that can help you when you're ever struggling with figuring out what your role is, because the role of a mentor is a very interesting one. All right, so we have a quick video we're going to play to provide an overview of how to ace your role as a mentor. All right. So, short little clip, but I do think that these three traits are really, really important ones to think about when you're working as a mentor. So, authenticity, I very much define that as just being yourself and not being afraid to show who you really are. That's something that I've definitely noticed myself do when I'm working with students. We're from a different generation. A lot of us are from different cultures and different backgrounds, and I don't pretend to know what my students are going through, or what they're talking about, or what they're interested in, because we don't share things in common. But then sometimes through identifying what those differences are, we find other things we do share in common. So I think it's very important to be authentic and to not just, pretend that you know what your mentee's background is or what their life is like, or that you share in it. Because sometimes being authentic and saying, I don't know anything about that, can you tell me more, can be a really great way for them to open up, or for them to tell you about something you might not have known about before, and build your rapport with them. And then, of course, when you show that you're genuinely interested in something, that's going to show. So that authenticity, I think, is really important. Compassion, empathy. Again, I referenced that I'm a counselor, so all of these things are obviously very, very important to me. But I do think just being compassionate, and you're not an instructor, you're not a supervisor, you are not a drill sergeant when you're working as a mentor. Your role is not to discipline or be strict. There's obviously times when you can be firm. If you have a mentee that continuously is late for meetings and is not respectful of your time, then you can have a very firm conversation about that, and kind of come back to what are some of the expectations we have of each other. And that can be a hard conversation, and a tough one. But I really think that we need to, as mentors, lead with compassion, and always be kind of mindful of what are the struggles our students are coming from. And our first question, if we find that our mentee did something that we don't like or didn't expect, or that they aren't holding up their side of the bargain, we're always kind of trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, and leading with, so what's going on? What happened? Is everything okay? Is that why, did something happen that made you late today? Or, is something going on that you want to talk about that might explain why you seem a little frustrated or angry today? Leading with a compassionate and empathic demeanor, I think, is the best way to show that you care and get students to open up. And again, just, in your roles at work, you might supervise people and you might need to come down a little harder on them. But this is an opportunity to actually be a little bit softer and open up, and focus more on that relationship, I guess. So I think compassion is really important. And then, of course, expertise. We have recruited and reached out to the pool of people to be mentors that we did because you guys have expertise in the types of areas and fields that our students are entering. So I think it's really, really important to just keep in mind that that is, really valuable information. I know that there's a lot of times where students ask me questions about things related to their career field that I really can't answer. And I wish I could just say, well, let me have you talk to this nurse or, this person who works in the medical front office industry. I really want sometimes to be able to provide actual firsthand information and experience to help answer students' questions and give them a better and I guess just a more accurate answer. So, take pride in that expertise that you have and don't be afraid to share it because that's something that's going to be really, really valuable to the student, to building your relationship and to, you know, keeping them, on track with what their goals are and, engaged in the mentoring program because that's what a lot of them are here for. They really do want to get out of it that professional development, that career-oriented information. All right. So another thing that I wanted to discuss was what's known as Rhodes' conceptual model of mentoring. So this is a pretty classic study where Gene Rhodes theorized that there are three ways that a mentor influences the healthy growth of a mentee. So it includes enhanced social skills and emotional well-being, improved cognitive skills through dialogue and listening, and then positive identity development through role modeling and advocacy. So the first part we just see sort of the social emotional type stuff that we talked about with the compassion and the empathy. You're helping to improve the well-being just by being a caring adult that's checking in and making sure that your mentee is okay, but then also just having these types of conversations and through practice, you're helping your mentee learn how to have those types of relationships and conversations that aren't quite like a professional, I've got to, be my best self like I'm on an interview, but also aren't as casual as what they would have with their friends or family, somewhere in between. And I think those are really useful types of conversations to have. And it's been shown that those types of conversations actually improve cognitive skills. And then, of course, their identity development, they're having someone that they can look at as a role model and who can help to advocate for them. That's a really, really useful and positive way to influence the mentee's growth. So then on the right side of your screen, there's a little more information about the difference between a successful and an unsuccessful mentoring approach. So there's three types of approaches to mentoring: developmental, instrumental, and prescriptive. And those mentors who are more developmental have longer lasting and more meaningful relationships. So what do these approaches look like? Well, developmental mentors help the mentee build positive attitudes, thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. So they really focus on building a relationship, and trust is very, very central to that. They frame their relationship about what the mentee wants to do. So it's not that we're just, giving the mentee everything they want, but the mentee has chosen to be here. So let's figure out what they want to get out of this relationship and then build it around those things. So it's really important that the mentee's desires, needs, and goals for the relationship are kind of central to the interactions when you have a developmental mentoring relationship. Developmental mentors listen more than they talk, so they're not just lecturing the whole time. They're actually, again, focusing on what the mentee is feeling or thinking and wants and using that as the guide for their relationship. They let the mentee naturally bring up issues and concerns. So they aren't going to say, oh, well, we can't talk about, your relationship issues or this problem that you're having with your mom or your roommate, because that's not what mentoring is about. They allow the mentee to bring up whatever's of concern to them and help as best as they can. And then they always remain flexible and supportive. Instrumental mentors are not the worst in terms of successful outcomes, but they're also not the best. So an instrumental mentor, looking at our middle column here, they let mentees choose activities and guide them through it. They provide encouragement and feedback, and they're active listeners. But they also kind of are, I guess they're still very much focused about their expertise in a topic, and they're still very, very much more about kind of like instrumental, like an instructor. They're still very much more about the learning than about the relationship. Whereas the prescriptive mentor, and this is a type of relationship that is shown to be the least successful, they pretty much are telling and instructing the mentees on what needs to be done. They're giving advice, they're lecturing, but they're not really listening. They're not as mentee focused. They're more task focused. They have specific goals that they are setting for the mentee, that they are pushing, and they're not letting the mentee kind of bring up whatever's going on. They're forcing them to it. They are looking at it as, this mentee's here because they have some issues, some problems, something that needs to be fixed or solved, and I'm here to fix or solve it. And that's not really a great way to build a relationship or to help make lasting change. People need to be guided to see the different ways that maybe they could change if they're having a problem. But you can't just tell them what to do and expect them to do it. There's a learning process that needs to happen. And that's really what developmental mentors are much better at, and why they're more successful. They are mentee focused, and they're kind of letting the mentee be the guide, and then shaping things around that, and building on the strength of their relationship to have the other pieces like reaching goals and teaching come into play. All right, so we have one more video clip. This is called 5 Tips for Mentors.
For a student, whether they're in high school or college, is one of the best ways for you to give back. But being a good mentor isn't always easy, and that's why I want to help. In this video, I'm going to share how to be a good mentor to a student, along with 5 tips and strategies that I have to make you the best mentor possible. Hi, I'm Angel Santiago, founder of the mentorship platform Way Ahead and your personal mentor. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button and turn the bell notification on. Every week, I'm making videos to help you in life, career, and everything in between. Being a good mentor should always be your goal, so let's jump into the 5 mentoring tips and strategies. Tip number 1, understand what your mentee's goals are. Before you can get in and start giving perspective and guidance, you need to get to know your mentee. I've met a lot of people who call themselves mentors, but they haven't put in the legwork to get to know the people that they're working with, to get to know the people they're trying to help. So please take a second and just get to know your mentee. What are their goals? What are they trying to accomplish with their lives? It could be something as simple as, should I go to college or not? Is the military route for me? What classes should I take in college? Or maybe, how do I get a job? All of these questions, getting crystal clear from the very beginning, are going to help you focus what it is that you're going to be spending your time with your mentee doing. Tip number 2, set expectations. This is something that you have to do early on, and it's something a lot of people skip. You and your mentee need to create an agreement that works for you. You have to discuss things like, how often are you going to be communicating? Is it once a week? Is it every other week, once a month? What are the types of communications that you can expect? Is this through text message, phone call, video chat, or maybe if you live in the same area, you're actually getting together? And then also, are there any deliverables that both parties can expect? So is your mentee supposed to bring something to you every meeting, and vice versa? Are you supposed to bring something, whether it's resources or whatever it is, for your mentee every meeting? Setting expectations in the beginning is going to be the best way to make sure that you're setting up this relationship to succeed. Tip number 3, honor your commitment. This is something that I've had so many mentees tell me, that past mentors had completely ghosted them. They were talking, and then all of a sudden they never heard from their mentor again. That's in poor taste, honestly. If you make the commitment to mentor somebody, you have to make sure that you can live up to your end. And that's why the getting crystal clear on what your mentee needs, and also setting expectations early on, is so important. Again, if you agree to mentor somebody, please be around when they need you and make sure that you can honor that commitment. Tip number 4, be objective. Chances are, if someone's asking you to be their mentor, they're expecting objectivity. They want somebody who's not directly in their situation or that close to the problem to be able to give them good, unbiased advice. And that's your job as a mentor, is to make sure that in your communication and in your conversations with your mentee, you're being objective. You're looking at the situation at a higher level, and you're trying to understand all of the moving parts. Because honestly, when you're so close to the situation like your mentee is, it's really hard to take everything into consideration. So if you want to be a good mentor, you need to make sure that you're being objective. Tip number 5, hold your mentee accountable. Accountability is something that's really tough for some people, but it's really important if you want to be a good mentor. If your mentee said that they were going to do something or take action on the advice that you gave them, it's really important that you as a mentor are holding them accountable. And this also ties in with giving good feedback. You have to make sure that you're being upfront and honest with your mentee at all times. Be candid with them. Tell them what they're doing right, tell them what they're doing wrong, but also give them tips on how they can improve. This is exactly how you can build a great, mutually beneficial relationship with your mentee. So there you have it, folks. 5 tips.
All right. I should have mentioned, I will send the links for both of the videos that we watched today. So if you have any technical difficulties watching them, or if you want to reference them again, they're there. But just to quickly review, understand your mentee's goals. We've talked about that quite a bit. Setting expectations, another great tip. And I do want to mention that you will be provided with a kind of template for setting expectations. We have an agreement between mentees and mentors. It's sort of a document that outlines the baseline expectations that we set as part of the LEAP program, but then also additional ones we want you to create with your mentee. And that's something I'm going to send to you when you are introduced to your mentor, and it will be expected that you will set those expectations up and complete that agreement in your first meeting. You can always go back and change it and edit it, but I do think that that is a really, really crucial thing to do. So you guys both know what you're expecting. You don't want to come to things saying, well, I expect we're going to talk frequently. And your mentee says, yeah, I think that's great. And your expectation of frequently is once a week, and your mentee's expectation is every other day. That can definitely set up opportunity for some, friction when your mentee thinks that you're not giving them what they want or what they need, and you don't have time for them. And you're thinking, well, once a week's good. I don't want to give them too much and overload them, So setting those expectations is really helpful, and I think also opens up lots of lines of communication. So third tip, honor your commitment. Again, we ask you guys to do this for a year. We've been upfront about that. 4, be objective. And then 5, accountability and give good feedback. So again, I think we've touched on a lot of these things. I won't go into depth because I think he did a really good job of explaining each of them. But I think that's a really useful overview of some things to think about when you're approaching your mentoring relationships. All right, so just want to give you guys a heads up about some things that we think are pretty typical challenges you might see with our population. So obviously our students, we've told you before, they have to demonstrate that they have some different types of barriers. So that's like a baseline eligibility for being in the LEAP program. So we always need to keep that in mind. We do have students that have a lot of other things going in their lives, or they face different types of challenges that sometimes, get them off course in the other things they're doing with LEAP, whether it's their education or their employment goals. And that could come to play when it comes to the mentoring relationship too. Sometimes we have students that fall out of contact, or they frequently need to reschedule, or they have gaps in their engagement with our program. I've had students that had children and needed to take some time off and then came back. I've had students that had family emergencies, illnesses, living situation issues. They don't have any transportation, an ill family member they have to care for. They just have too much going on, personally, maybe mental health issues, and they need to take a break. So life happens to all of us. So to just keep in touch keep in mind that those things might happen, and it might cause your mentee to kind of fall out of touch or to be less involved as you hope they would be. But there are times that this type of thing happens, and we see it with our population. So they can be challenging, but we don't want you to be discouraged. And there's a happy medium. We want you to be persistent and, not give up if a student says, I'm sorry, I can't talk, I have a lot going on. That doesn't mean you don't reach out to them maybe a couple days later or the next week, but, you also don't have to hound them. Again, it's that kind of balance between being someone who's supportive and caring and holding them accountable, but not being a disciplinarian. And of course, just be as flexible as you can. We understand you guys all have lives outside of your jobs and mentoring, and there's other things that you are responsible for, but just trying to be as flexible as you can, heading into this, knowing that sometimes you might have appointments with your mentee and meetings that might not go as planned, or you might need to change them. Just be aware of that from the start. And of course, be intentional about building strong relationships. I know that the students I have who have had different types of struggles, the ones who I've already had a strong relationship with and really built a strong rapport with at the start of our relationship, are the ones that I was able to maintain that, stronger relationship with, despite the things that they went through, or they would turn to me for help when they had things that were going on in their lives. Because sometimes we do have students that are going through things and they don't tell us, and or maybe they don't tell us until they've gone through it, and then we can't help them. So having that strong relationship is going to make it more likely that they'll share with you, so then we can provide the support and resources they need. So keep those things in mind. All right, and then of course, there's always some types of different, ethical, safety, and risk management issues to consider. So there is a full document that I will be sending you after you complete this that kind of goes over each of these different areas in more detail. And when I send you the resource guide as well, there's this whole document in there that's ethical safety and risk management issues. But to provide kind of a brief understanding of each of these points, we'll go through it quickly now. So just keep in mind whenever you're not sure how to handle something that your primary goal is to promote the welfare, safety, and dignity of the student mentee. So that, and then the second bullet point here, remember the ethical obligation to do no harm. Those are sort of the main guiding principles that you always want to keep in mind when you're thinking about, should I handle this in this way or that way? You know, what should I do about this issue that my mentee is bringing to me, or this position that I've been put in related to a challenge with my mentee. You're always going to try to keep your mentee as safe as possible, to respect their dignity, to do no harm. Obviously, refrain from inappropriate physical contact. I know there are some people who are huggers, but sometimes it's just best to be as conservative in terms of physical contact with people as possible so that we don't have any misunderstandings. Avoid multiple or conflicting roles. So this can definitely be a problem if you know, maybe you're working with your mentee and you also, you know, one day have, or one day while you're still mentoring them, they come in and they apply for a job. And you would be the person they're reporting to. You know, you can be a mentor in a workplace environment to someone that you are supervising. But I think it would be hard for people in those types of positions to continue to be a mentor with a student through the LEAP program and through the structure we set up here, while also being their supervisor. So keep that in mind. If something does happen, we don't want to hold a student back from applying for a job opportunity, but we do want to think, all right, maybe we should assign the student to a different mentor if they start working for the person that is their mentor. That's probably the most likely situation, but of course, there can always be other ways that we might have roles in our personal lives and our professional lives where that could become a conflict if we're also working with a person as a mentor. So keep those things in mind, and don't be afraid to let me know if something happens and your roles are changing in a way that makes it so you don't think you can continue to be a mentor. We'd rather assign someone to a new mentor before that whole year is over than put them in a position that might be kind of compromising the benefit of participating in this program. I think I've probably beat this one to death, but set time and communication expectations early. So that's why we have you guys do an agreement with your mentees. We want to make sure that you guys are both on the same page about what you want from one another in terms of how much time your meetings will be and when they'll be and how you'll be talking and how frequently you will be communicating. Explain confidentiality and the limits to confidentiality. So essentially what this means is your relationship with your mentee and the things that you guys are talking about is confidential. It's just like if you were to go to a therapist or mental health practitioner of some sort, you know, the things that are said within that space are confidential. But there are limits to confidentiality when going back to the ethical obligation to do no harm, when we feel as a mentor or counselor or therapist that the person who we are working with told us something that means that they are either likely to harm themselves or harm someone else. So it's always good to tell your students that, you know, everything that you tell me is confidential, but if you tell me something that makes me feel as though you are a danger to yourself or others, I'm going to have to share it with someone else so we can keep everyone safe. So the limits to confidentiality piece is really about we only break confidentiality if it is absolutely necessary because someone, you know, says something suicidal or maybe threatens to hurt somebody else. In those cases, we need to tell someone else. And for you guys, that someone else would be me, so that we can make sure that we take appropriate action to protect everybody. Discuss expectations for social media use. I recommend that your mentoring relationship stay off social media. So, you know, don't post pictures of your mentee. And I guess it's between you and your mentee whether you guys want to follow each other on social media or not. But if you are someone that's really active on social media and you want to discuss things that you're doing with your mentee, you definitely need to ask them first and make sure that they're comfortable with that, and vice versa. You know, I'm imagining that our mentees are probably very active social media users because of their age, and you know, if you know, they want to post something about you, I would hope that they would ask you as well. So I think that's something that's important to discuss when we talk about all of our expectations, because social media is something that's such a big part of our lives that sometimes we don't think to talk about it, but it's really something I think we need to be clear about in this type of a relationship. Limit the money that you're spending on your mentee and on the individual mentoring activities. So I recommend that you don't spend money on your mentee. You don't want to get into a position where they expect it or where anything financial kind of becomes kind of misconstrued with the real nature of your relationship. If you guys are going out to like get coffee and you want to spend a couple bucks on them to buy them a cup of coffee, I think that's, a reasonable thing. But I really, really discourage you from, trying to spend a lot of money on tickets to a show to do some together as a mentoring activity, or going out to a fancy dinner, or, doing things that really have a higher cost attached. We will try to do some types of group mentoring activities where, if there's a ticket price or something, we will cover that for the students. So look at, if you want to do things, big events with the mentee, and there's something that you're really interested in, but it has a higher price tag attached, let me know, and I'll see if that's something we could build in as a group activity. But I highly, highly encourage everybody in your individual mentoring, don't spend money or spend very, very little, and just be, as keep it as free as possible and cheap as possible. So when you're going to events, meetings, I definitely encourage you to use separate transportation, or, maybe meet your mentee somewhere and then you guys both can take the bus or the metro or whatever together. It's just much easier to use separate transportation than to worry about, any other type of potential liability if something were to happen, accident or something like that. So use separate transportation. They get to the campus or the library or whatever else it is that you're meeting on their own, and you get there on your own. And then, if you're going somewhere a little bit further, or you guys want to come to a campus event together, then maybe you meet at a bus stop close to the student's house and you guys take public transportation together. As I think I've referenced before, we do provide bus tokens to our students. So if they have transportation issues, we can provide bus tokens for them to attend mentoring activities. So if they say they can't get somewhere, but they want to go, say, okay, we'll talk to your case manager about getting some bus tokens, and then we'll see what we can do. And then the last piece is just to understand emergency and crisis situation procedures. So we will make sure that both you and your mentee provide us with emergency contact information, and then that we share that information with, each of you. So you will have your mentee's emergency contact and they will have yours, and then I will have everyone's. So in the case that there's any type of an emergency or a crisis that arises, we ask that you notify both the emergency contact person as well as me. If you can't get in touch with me or the emergency contact, leave voicemails, send texts, send an email, whatever way is best. And if you're unable to get in touch with the emergency contact person, contact me, and then I will do my best to get in touch with that person. So we just want to make sure that we kind of have our bases covered in case anything happens, and communications happening for both across both, the LEAP program as well as the personal emergency contact that our student has listed. All right, so if we were here in a group and we were all discussing, I would love to talk through these questions, but since not, I guess I'd just like for you to consider these things. What are 2 new things you learned today that will help you begin your new role as a mentor? I'd like everyone to just kind of consider what are some things that were brought up in the videos, in the discussion, that you think will be really, really useful for you becoming a mentor? How will they help you to be a better mentor? And then also think about, do you still have any questions or concerns about mentoring or the LEAP program? If so, I will leave my contact information at the end, and I highly encourage you to call or email so we can discuss those things, because I want everyone to enter this program as a mentor feeling as confident and as fully informed as possible. All right, so next steps from today. This is the second to last slide of our orientation webinar. So I will be sending everyone, actually you already should have it, the Volunteer Mentor General Contract, which pretty much just outlines all of the expectations that I've discussed in the earlier part of the video. So I'll ask everybody to sign that. Electronic signatures are fine, and return back to me via email. I also sent in that email a link to our volunteer mentor matching assessment. So this is a very quick Microsoft Forms assessment where you'll be just providing that emergency contact information and letting us know a couple things about you in terms of your part of town that you live in and what your position is, so that we can make sure that we are finding the best fit of a mentee for you. So the next two pieces are kind of, I won't say optional, but they depend on how you were referred to us. So if you are someone who's already working closely with our job development staff, whether you're a WALO supervisor or you're an employer that we work with very frequently, in those cases, we will not make anyone participate in the volunteer mentor interview. And we do want to conduct reference checks, but again, in those cases, we will allow one of our job developers to serve as a reference check for you. So those of you who are already kind of existing employers that were actually recruited by LEAP staff, you don't have to do the interview or do a formal reference check. We will waive the interview requirement, and then our staff will do the reference check. But if you are someone who found out about this elsewhere and you don't already work with the LEAP program, then we will have you go through a brief interview, which I will work to schedule with you, and then we'll ask to conduct a reference check, and you will provide your reference information when you complete the volunteer mentor matching assessment. So upon successful completion of all of those steps, and barring that there's no concerns when we do our interview or the reference check, then your final steps will just be that I'll send you the resource guide via email. You'll meet with your student mentee for an introductory one-on-one session and to do that mentoring agreement where you lay out your expectations, and you'll attend an upcoming monthly group mentoring activity. So I will send the mentoring resource guide in one email, and then in another, I will send one where I'm introducing you to your mentee, and you guys will have all the information that you need. And from there, we hope that you guys will have a wonderful relationship. You'll report back to us once a month when I send you the link to fill out that report, and we'll see you occasionally at those group mentoring activities. So that is everything that we needed to cover for today's orientation and training for the LEAP program's mentoring, or I guess prospective mentors. So again, my name is Laura Finazzo. I'm the program coordinator for LEAP, and I'm overseeing coordination of this mentoring program. So you've already gotten emails from me, but if you have any more questions or concerns, my contact information is here, and you can call me or text me on the number that you see. That is a cell number. So I look forward to receiving your completed contracts and providing any assistance that I can from here on out. And hopefully we'll be pairing you with a mentor soon. Thank you so much for watching this.